ChatGPT 5.5 just dropped 2 days after their incredible Images 2.0 came out. I'm already seeing all over the internet how this beats out Claude Opus 4.7 in almost every benchmark. OpenAI just mogged Claude's 1 week reign. Opus is cooked in every possible way. So with all that being said and all the clickbait titles, the point of this video is I want to compare exactly what this update is and how this update compares to Claude Opus 4.7. With all that being said, let's dive in. Just like in all my YouTube videos, the link to this article that I'm using for reference, which is their announcement, is going to be in the YouTube description. I want to be real with you. I do think that the average user will notice a difference between 5.4 and 5.5, but I think the strongest difference we've seen from 5.4 till now is going to be the agentic part, which is way more complex task than the average user is going to use. I do think you can break down exactly the big difference in this just one sentence, despite this whole article where we're going to look at tons of different examples and comparisons, as that's what this video is about, by reading this. Across these domains, 5.5 is not just more intelligent, it is more efficient in how it works through problems, often reaching higher quality outputs with fewer tokens and fewer tries. On an artificial analysis coding index, 5.5 delivers a state-of-the-art intelligence of half the cost of competing frontier coding models. So in other words, you can get more done for less cost because just less tokens. If you actually watch the video up top, which I don't want to play the whole thing, basically this guy at the very beginning says it just makes him lazy because he no longer really has to think through his prompts. It just kind of does it.
Previously, a lot of my prompts had to be very detailed or very instruction-y kind of, where I'm trying to tell it like, hey, look in this part of the code base, do this. Whereas with GPT 5.5, sometimes I become lazy and I kind of give it a very ambiguous task.
All right, so first thing in this article it does is it shows you a reference chart with a bunch of words that you and myself probably don't recognize, and then compares it with all models like the previous 5.4 model, the Pro model, and Claude Opus 4.7 directly, which is funny because Claude Opus also referenced them the last update, and the Gemini 3.1, which by the way, my last video was comparing image generation from ChatGPT 2.0 to Gemini 3.1. I thought it was a really good video. Apparently YouTube didn't think so, but you got to check out ChatGPT 2.0 image generation because it's incredible. But let's look into what these things actually mean. I made this little slideshow. I know it's kind of hard to read, but I'm going to explain it to you. So terminal bench, ChatGPT gets to 82%, whereas Claude Opus 4.7 is 69%. All that terminal bench means is basically this is how well it fixes real coding issues. I know this from personal experience from coding my own successful iOS app that I used Codex to cross-reference my project I was building in Claude Code, and it was just better. So the fact that 5.5 is able to be nearly or over like 15% Claude Opus 4.7 doesn't entirely surprise me in the least. I want to only cover the things that is actually comparing Opus 4.7 to, because obviously this internal expert is not in comparison, it's just with the previous models. The next one is the GDP val. So what does that mean? It's how useful this is in real businesses and the knowledge of work task. Now on this one, it's about 4% over Claude Opus 4.7, which basically means integrating into your businesses, no matter what you do, ChatGPT is probably going to be a little smarter and be able to adapt more. Kind of like we saw that guy say earlier, how it kind of just fills in the blanks. That's kind of what it's able to do with one of these businesses. So that's kind of all that the GDP val is talking about. We'll move on to, again, it's ahead on browser comp. I'm sure you can guess what that means. Is just how well it researches the web and information. Pretty basic one, and again, about 5% over Claude Opus 4.7. You could probably guess what both of these mean. The Frontier Math 1 through 3 and the Frontier Math Tier 4 is essentially just different how strong it is at math and reasoning. And on both of these, it's 51% on the 5.5, which is slightly over the, well actually incredibly over the Opus 4.7 by nearly 10%. The Frontier Math Tier 4, it's over that again by another tier percent. And the last thing that it compares is the CyberGem, which it's over the CyberGem. It's at 81%, and Claude Opus 4.7 is at 73%. What CyberGem is how capable it is on cybersecurity challenges. So cybersecurity is a growing risk as these models are becoming powerful. That's why they claim they didn't release Mythos to the public and to the wild, is because they were essentially scared of cybersecurity risks. So that's saying that ChatGPT 5.5 is the strongest at being able to protect you, which is a pretty big deal. So this is all what the fancy terminology means when you first open the article. Let's take a look at some of the things that you can actually do with GPT ChatGPT 5.5. A couple of things they did in the announcement video that is worth noting is they tagged browser, which again is smarter than it was, to solve a cube, and it actually solved a Rubik's Cube in real time. So it's not that any of this stuff is absolutely brand new, but it's better. It's better at simulations, it's building games, and it actually has some examples in the article that I just clicked that you can kind of click through to see how better it is in certain areas. So on these areas, you have all kinds of things from the space missions map that they coded, and you can just kind of click around, play, see it all set up. They literally have a game in here, a 3D game called Tank Down that it coded, to where it's a little tank and you go around and you fire things. And I'm assuming these are all off of just like pretty basic comps, and then just reasoning these things. A dungeon game to where it's a fighting in like this style of game. An earthquake tracker that literally tracks earthquakes in Japan. These are some things that were benchmarks for 5.5 to show stronger ability to understand the shape of a system, why something is failing, where it needs to land, and else the code base would be affected. For reasoning that it has is, again, being able to connect to your docs. In this example, it basically brings up a file, a VC file, and sort of allows you to connect your prompt to the file, and completely goes through, thinks through all the items and organizes it for you. A lot like we've already seen with Claude Opus 4.7. I actually did this very recently. I used 3 different types of files, like a PDF, an XLSX, and I don't even remember the other one. Combined them all together and was able to kind of get all the information together. And that's kind of what this is showing, is it actually made that file from the prompt from connecting the sheets. Very useful for business owners to be able to do this. You could kind of do this before, but basically it's just, again, strengthened, and it goes into the ChatGPT 5.5 thinking mode, which is better for harder, more complex problems to be able to do things like this. Finally, referencing the video they did one more time, is they actually did the on Slack. They told it to go do something, and this is where the agentic comes in, which is the biggest upgrade almost of this entire thing. It goes and pulls the request from GitHub and connects it to Slack to be able to send them, read and respond as ChatGPT. Literally in the message it says this was sent by ChatGPT, or using ChatGPT. This is a big one. This is essentially what I'm going to do, one of the things that I want to do. Fortunately, right now, they said they would give it to users that are pro and up. I still don't have it. One of the things I plan on doing is my Canva is already connected. I do create content. I wanted to create an agent that will take these YouTube transcripts that you're watching and listening to. It will convert it to a carousel of images on using Canva, and it will send me that carousel. That way I can go post images on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, strictly from my video transcript on my words that I said, to be able to have other social copies that kind of stretch my content further. Tons of possibilities with this. Let me know what you think about ChatGPT 5.5. If you enjoyed the video, leave me a subscribe, and I will see you guys next video.